Hello everybody, 'tis I, the Rumpled One. Basic Disaster Life Support, put out by the National Disaster Life Support Foundation and the American Medical Association. Chapter 4 is Workforce Readiness and Disaster Deployment. Remember, this is geared toward healthcare professionals. Okay. Pre-deployment questions to consider. In other words, before you decide to go out, you have to ask yourself, can you find extended care for dependent family members? You might be gone for weeks or months. Can your employer afford your absence? Do you have any physical limitations that may impair your performance in a particular environment? Have you recently had surgery or have a temporary medical condition that will impair your ability to be deployed or perform your duties at a particular deployment site? Are you taking prescribed medication that may hamper your abilities to perform your duties in a deployment environment? And if you have prescribed medications that do not affect your duties, do you have sufficient medications to last for your total deployment? Are you aware of any issue that may prevent completion of your deployment? Are you able to share a sleeping environment or room with 3 or more associates? Do you have special dietary requirements? If required, can you work 12-hour or greater shifts for several days? Are there special requirements at home that need your attention? Are there seriously ill relatives in your immediate family? Do you have a plan outlining the way your personal family affairs will be handled during your absence? Now, once again, this is basically geared for medical professionals. But just as a citizen, an individual, these are things you should consider. Because even though you might not be deployed, these things still could affect you, your health, your family's health, and well-being. They talk about volunteerism and team membership, maintaining deployment readiness status. In other words, you have to be ready, be prepared. Then your personal health and wellness. Personal equipment and packing. They said a prepackaged bag or suitcase, i.e. go kit, should be ready to take at a moment's notice. Once again, this is stuff that most of us preppers know, that we need to have our go bag, grab and go kit, bug out bag. It says you should pack light. Well, that just makes sense. Protect your items from moisture and insects. Use plastic Ziploc bags. Now, that's something I like to do, but I also like to put certain food items in tins. And the reason I like tins is because that way insects and rodents have a hard time chewing through that metal. It says use a suitcase or bag that can fit under a cot. It says pack a fanny pack or money belt to contain personal identification papers. Take a backpack to carry drinking water, food, snacks, hygiene products, personal medications, flashlight, and other essential supplies. Pack sturdy, practical, comfortable, protective shoes with extra socks. He said this is not the time to break in new shoes. And that is so true. If you had to hike 10 miles or more, you don't want to be breaking in new boots or shoes. Include your professional equipment. If you have any, and standardize batteries whenever possible to reduce the need to carry multiple types. And your professional, take along your professional credentials and equipment. And let's see, pre-deployment education and training. Said once deployed, responders should be receptive to just-in-time training to acquire additional knowledge and skills specific to the assignment. Certain legal issues for volunteer health responders, professional liability. But you see there's government sovereign immunity, federal and state volunteer protection acts, Good Samaritan statutes, state emergency health power statutes, and mutual aid compacts. A compact is an agreement or like a contract. Personal risk awareness and mitigation. Once again, wear eye, hand, and face protection. You know, safety glasses, goggles, work boots, leather gloves, rubber or latex gloves, surgical mask, hard hat, earplugs, and N95 respirators. Talks about field hygiene, field shelters, insect bites and stings, injury risk, animal bites, heat and cold related emergencies. I mean, you could get heat stress, heat exhaustion, even heat stroke. Things to consider. You know, exposure to blood and body fluids. You definitely want to minimize exposure. And then you talk about the workforce activation and mobilization and workforce protection. Once again, things to consider: temperature extremes, precipitation, changes in the wind direction, smoke and fire hazards, potential violent situations. I mean, social unrest in a disaster, something you have to think about. You got to be on guard for. Potential structure collapse. You know, uncontrolled release of hazardous materials. Something, a pipe could erupt. There could be an explosion. And presence of secondary devices. We just saw that at the Boston Marathon. And disaster scene exclusion zones. Basically, they want to have what you have you have 3 zones. You got your hot zone, your warm zone, and then your cool zone or cold zone. And the hot zone, that's where the event happened. The warm zone, that's where the workers enter and leave the contaminated area or hot zone. And the cold zone, that's the contamination-free area. And as citizens, we're not going to have personal protection equipment usually. You know, the rest, because the PPE, personal protection equipment, has basically respiratory protection and protective garments and barriers. And so chances are you won't have that type of equipment, and hopefully you won't be anywhere near an environment where you need that type of equipment. And there's a lot of things about the PPE levels and challenges here. And casualty decontamination. I mean, there's different types. You've got dry decontamination, where you just remove their clothes and debris, and wet, where you actually shower and wipe down the casualties. And there's special decontamination considerations. And you have to be aware, once again, of children and other, people that might have special needs. If the water pressure is too high, it could injure somebody. Then they talk about the workforce demobilization and deployment-related stress. And then they wrap it up. So, once again, this is geared to the medical profession, but these are some things you can apply it. It's good to know. Good to know what to expect others to be doing, and how they're going to be working. So, once again, this course I got to take for free, and down in the description underneath the video I usually put the link so you can look up and see if you get to take this course in your area. Basic Disaster Life Support. It's a good course.